Bang.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leads in, back away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has the foul, and a foul, throws it down. And a foul. Working against Butler, got downhill, couldn't punch it. Bam says, get it out of here. Adebayo, sky high with the block and rejection. That's why he's NBA All-Defensive Team. Caldwell Pope inside, he's tied up by Green. Throws it back up top, James puts up the three. Oh, it's gone! LeBron James from downtown as the shot clock expires.
Gets it into Durant. Here is Durant moving on Tucker. He turns, he shoots.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The gang's all back. All three of us are finally in studio. We're here for the 15th episode, which sounds crazy to even mention. The 15th episode of Deep from Three. As always, I'm Devin Withers, alongside Gary Sunnyberger and Isaiah Hansen. Fellas, how we doing today?
Very, very good. How about you, my friend?
This is an amazing time of the year. We're approaching NBA playoffs, and of course, for the baseball fans out there, it's the beginning of the season, so I'm great. And there was WrestleMania this week. I'm damn.
Oh yeah, we got everything. We got absolutely everything. Yeah, I'm great over here. I mean, aside from my crippling anxiety from being a Lakers fan, wondering why LeBron is taking games off when we're down 2 games from the play-in tournament. Aside from Russell Westbrook being an all-star one night and not being an all-star the next night. I mean, life is good. Life is good over here.
Other than everything.
It's good to hear, man. I'm glad that you're not too what's the word I'm looking for? Destroyed by this season.
Not yet, at least. But yeah, we've got a great episode here. We're going to be reflecting on some of the predictions that we made preseason, going all the way back to early October. The three of us coordinated when it came to a collaboration article. We talked about our predictions, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, bold predictions, everything from start to finish. And there were some really good predictions, and there were some really not so good predictions. So we're going to be going over those. Fellas, let's start off with some of the worst predictions that we had going into the season, because there was a good amount of them. I want to start with you, because this sort of ties into what we all chose as our NBA Finals. I had the Jazz versus the Nets. Okay, it might be a reach right now, but you never know. Gary had the Jazz and the Bucks. You never know. The Bucks are turning right now.
I had Lakers and the Bucks, my man.
Oh, you had Lakers and Bucks. And
yes.
Yes. Isaiah, did you end up with the Jazz and the Bucks?
I did.
Okay, so Gary, we need to talk to you then. It's not even Isaiah. I'm pointing the gun at the wrong man. We should be pointing at you. So the Lakers and the Bucks was your prediction coming into the season. Sort of talk us through what that whole entire experience was like.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, the experience as a Lakers fan, Devin, as you well know, has been very tumultuous this season. At the beginning of the year, okay, let's start off with the fact that we all picked the Bucks, and we are all looking pretty solid in that one. Now, the Bucks might not be first in the East at the moment. Shout out to the Heat. But at the same time, they are pretty much unanimously the favorite to come out of the East. Of course, there's a couple of teams. People are still betting on the Nets, even though they're a little bit in the play-on right now. They haven't been playing as well as of late with Kyrie back, KD going off, but at the same time, what we're actually talking about though, we're pretty solid on the Bucks, but as the Lakers go, I'm going to be real honest. I was pretty high on the Russell Westbrook trade when it happened. I was pretty excited to watch a healthy Anthony Davis, which is kind of funny to say out loud. I was happy to watch LeBron James in his 37-year-old season, 19th season, going crazy. He's the leading scorer in the league right now, and still they're the 11th seed in the West. I was way off on how Russell Westbrook would impact this team. I was way off on the role players that they acquired over the season. I think everybody was way off on Talen Horton-Tucker's progression into becoming a better NBA player. And I think I just got fooled. Honestly, I'm a Heat fan. We all know this. I'm a big LeBron guy. I love his game. I love the way he plays, but he couldn't do it. And maybe it's because he missed all those games, and maybe it's, I mean, they still have a losing record when he plays, but at the same time, I got bamboozled. I got fooled. They run amok. I was led astray, as Stephen A. Smith would say. But at the same time, I would love to hear you and Isaiah's reasoning for picking the Jazz. We know they had a good season last year, kind of have some troubles in the playoffs going back from 2019 playing the Rockets, 2020 losing in the bubble to the Nuggets, 2021 losing last year. What was your reasoning, both of you, for picking the Jazz to come out of the West?
Yeah, Isaiah, I'll let you talk in a minute. For me, at least, though, for the Jazz, I wanted a team that finished in the midst of the West. I wanted a team that I knew was going to be competitive in both their play with the guards and Donovan Mitchell. I was expecting an improved year from Mitchell, which I think we've gotten to this point. I was expecting, great defense from Rudy Gobert. Once again, he's contending for Defensive Player of the Year, and that's no surprise to anybody. So for me, I was just looking for a balance all the way around in the West. And we didn't talk about this beforehand. None of us talked about our collaborations on who we were going to pick. Nope. And Isaiah, you also chose the Jazz without any communication between the two of us. So I'm interested on where you came through when it came to the Jazz.
It was simple. It was looking at everybody else and seeing where they were. I didn't think the Suns – I knew they would be good. I didn't think they were going to come back this strong again for some reason. Why I thought that, who knows at this point. But the Nuggets were a team that I would have probably had if – I remember, I think I wrote that in the article too. I said, if Jamal Murray was healthy, I would have pricked him. And then Michael Porter Jr. went down. I didn't believe in the Lakers from the start. I said, I didn't think they would be this bad, but I didn't think they were going to be ever be a top 3 seed at any point. So then that just left the Utah Jazz. I thought they were well established. Like at that point, Donovan Mitchell, Gobert, they were a good teammates with each other. And then you got Mike Conley, you got Jordan Clarkson. So you have a team that is, and you know what? I got to tell you something. I'm not off the bandwagon yet. I still think this is possibly going to happen.
I'm off. I'm out. I'm driving Rudy Gobert to the airport, bro.
Listen. I got maybe this is gonna shock you too. Golden State right now, number 1, coming out of the West. Number 2, Phoenix Suns. Number 3, Utah Jazz. So I'm still there. And I think, if it's not but I will say this. I did see a stat line earlier that kind of scared me a little bit. I saw Donovan Mitchell, his passing rate to Rudy Gobert was like what, 2%
he passes to Rudy Gobert 2 times a game.
Yeah, that's
two. I think it was like 2.5 average. It's
not a good look.
For your primary ball handler not to pass it to your center, only for him to pass it only 2 times a game. Yikes, with a capital Y.
But I'm still there. I'm not completely off. I'm not giving up hope on them 1,000%.
Yeah, and it's tough too. So I'm looking at this clip right now that I'll have to send. This happened on April 2nd, so just a few days ago. I don't know if you guys saw this clip as well. Rudy Gobert on a pick and roll switches and gets Klay Thompson when they played the Warriors on a complete mismatch. He's isolated on an island in the paint. This is one of the tallest, lengthiest players in the NBA. Free 2 points. Donovan Mitchell has the ball and completely disregards him. So yeah, it's frustrating as someone that picked the Jazz because there's so much talent on that roster. And as a 6th seed right now, they're going to have a hard time getting out of the first, if not the second round.
What's really surprising about that clip, if you watch it, you can go find it on Twitter. Literally, it's probably the top thing tweeted if you look up Rudy Gobert on Twitter.
I just looked at Rudy Gobert mismatch, and it was the first thing to pop up.
The craziest thing about that clip is the game time and when it happened. This isn't like third quarter, second quarter. This is crunch time. The Warriors were on a run. This is when Klay Thompson would hit like 3 straight threes. He's going crazy. The Warriors are on a run. They just need a quick 2 points, and Donovan Mitchell doesn't even look at his big man. And that's just basketball 101. I get that the relationship there, well documented, has not been the greatest, even though talent-wise, they probably could be 2 of the most dominant players at each of their positions. just with Gobert's defense and Mitchell's scoring and playmaking ability. But the fact that he won't even look at his big man, that's personally, I don't know how y'all feel. Maybe they work it out during the playoffs. Maybe we're just overthinking it. But to me, it looks like they're, as a team, they're just kind of like, I know, Isaiah, you believe in them, but as a team, for me, they just don't believe in themselves, which is, kind of the whole point of going to the NBA finals and actually competing in the playoffs. You have to believe that you're going to make it. You can't just absolutely check out halfway through the regular season. Yeah, the record's still good, but if you are having that much of a problem with your star players, I mean, we've seen it in the past 15 years. Every time the two-star, I mean, there's Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert trade rumors going around right now. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this, and I think I know the answer, but I'm curious to see if anyone would disagree. If you had to build your team around one player, and if you're in the Jazz front office and you say, I can either have Donovan Mitchell or I can have Rudy Gobert, who would you guys take between those two players?
3 times on Sunday, 7 days a week. I'm Donovan Mitchell. It's not close unless you got Vanderbilt going on the other side.
All right, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. I think anybody who's picking Rudy Gobert at this point is so far deep in the stat sheet looking at screen assists that they're not thinking with their head straight. Rudy Gobert's
to the man.
He's 3-time defensive player of the year. He's, and don't get it twisted. Rudy Gobert might make the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying, just as maybe not right now with stats, but give it 10, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 years, we might see him in the Hall. But yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it, man. I don't see them keeping him past maybe even this season. Who knows? They might even trade him in the offseason.
Right. And so as we look at some of these other predictions we had, I mean, I had Anthony Davis talking about defense. I had him as my defensive player of the year pick. I can't do too much about a guy that isn't even on the court for me. The Lakers, I mean, Isaiah, me and you were on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I was absolutely trashing the Lakers from start to finish. I call these guys quitters, losers, everything in the book that you can possibly think of. Gary, what I'm interested in is in a pick that you had, and it was a risky pick, but as the season continued, it sort of came into fruition. At one point, there's a lot of hype surrounding Jalen Green, and then it sort of just fizzled out. I don't know if it's because of the play of Evan Mobley. I don't know if it's because of the disappearance of Jalen Green, but what have you seen from him this season?
So Jalen Green had a really rough start to the year. I was very high on him as a scoring option, and I knew that Houston needed somebody to score the basketball. At the time, I in most of my basketball experience watching him, I'm not the biggest Kevin Porter Jr. fan. So I thought for sure Jalen Green was going to come in there and light it up. And he had a bit of a rough start, couple of months. He wasn't getting the playing time that he wanted. And the Houston Rockets actually were better when he was off the court. They went on a 9-game win streak when he had an injury at the beginning of the year. But recently, Jalen Green's been kind of kicking butt. He's the only rookie to score 30-plus points four times this year. I think Cade Cunningham's probably coming up on him in that regard, just from a scoring aspect. He's been killing it. But Jalen Green really didn't get the playing time in the beginning of the season. Steven Silas didn't really believe in him all that much. And, for good reason. He wasn't scoring. He was missing all of his shots. He's not a great defender. But my initial pick was, we've seen for the Rookie of the Year race, it be who scores the most points for, last 10, 15 years. You can even say 6 Man of the Year is the same way. A lot of these awards is just who scores the most points. And I was like, Jalen Green makes sense. Houston needs a scoring option. He's right there. And recently that's come true, but this is a full season award. You have to take into account what he did for the first 4 or 5 months of the year. And that wasn't so solid. So I'm still positive about Jalen Green becoming a good NBA player. I think if you're making your all rookie teams, he's undoubtedly in the first team. But that's all I can really say about that, because he just kind of really did not have a great start to the year. Yeah, he's kind of coming up now, but with the play of Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, these guys have been doing it consistently the whole year. And that's really what this award matters. That's really what matters about this award, is consistency. And yeah, of course it's narrative based. Everything is in the NBA, but narratives last for a long time. So I still won't harp on the pick. Like, I'm not gonna kill myself over it. But I like Jalen Green, and I hope he can bounce back after having a promising second half of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, Gary, you worded that exactly right, because I'm looking at it right now. Pre-All-Star break, this was a player averaging 14.6 points per game. And then post-All-Star break, he's up to 21.5. And like you said, the last few games for him, he's been averaging, high 20s, low 30s for his points. I saw his game log, and he put up, I think, 30 in like the last 2 games a piece. And then before that, it was like 28 and then another 30 piece. And so I agree with you. I think it's tough to be on board with a player who wasn't there from start to finish on that severe impact. In the month of October, 13 points a game, November, 14.5. You fast forward to January, he's back down to 13.1. But then you get months where, like March, for example, he's averaging over 20. In December, he was also averaging 20. That was where the peak of his season was. And so I'm also high on Jalen Green as a prospect. But when you're getting a player like Evan Mobley, who's doing what he's doing on both sides of the floor, it's really hard to disregard that. And the reason I think all of us didn't take Evan Mobley at the time was because he's playing alongside another huge giant in Jared Allen. And so I didn't think the rebounding numbers were going to be there. I thought it was going to be the Darius Garland and Jared Allen show for the most part.
And the sad thing is that, I mean, not the sad thing, I guess, like the cool thing is that we're actually, for once in our lives, giving the rookie of the year favorite to a guy who plays defense as his main attribute. Evan Mobley's a great, interior scorer. He can do a little bit on the offense, but really what his bread and butter is defensively. And it's cool just as an NBA community that we're kind of looking at that and going, yeah, we're going to give some respect to the guy who plays some defense. Yes. Let's do it. Giannis doesn't get enough credit for MVP because he's still one of the best defensive players in the year. But, rookie of the year, let's give it. Let's do it. Let's give it to a guy who plays some good defense. Yes, Scotty Barnes might take that award as of late because Evan Mobley's been out. But, I like the transfer of importance in the NBA when it comes to defense as of late.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too, sort of the last thing we'll talk about when it comes to Evan Mobley, at least. I know we were supposed to be talking about Jalen Green. The last three centers to win the NBA Rookie of the Year, you have to go all the way back to 2005. Emeka Okafor for the Charlotte Bobcats won in 2005. A few years before that, 2003, the Phoenix Sun great Amari Stoudemire won. And then, of course, back in 1998, NBA legend Tim Duncan. And so I'm not saying put Evan Mobley in the category, but I mean, dude, that's a long time. This has been a guard-driven NBA Rookie of the Year. You get LaMelo Ball, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon are all the last 5. And, Ben Simmons obviously plays point guard as well as forward. But if you count him as a guard, that's 5 guards in a row right there.
What was that list you just said? Because to me, it sounded like one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. We should be honest. That's a Joel Embiid Rookie of the Year vote for me. I know he only played like 39 games that year, but Malcolm Brogdon is definitely the oddball out on that list. But I thought that was just funny.
Yeah, absolutely. And Isaiah, we looked at your picks. And not really a whole lot wrong. I'm not trying to boost your ego at all, but I mean, the one thing that I sort of read, I went back and I read the whole entire thing, and you made an interesting point when it came to the Western Conference outlook. And you had noted that the Denver Nuggets, and you said, quote, the Denver Nuggets are still a handful of years away from a championship. That was preseason, and now you see what Jokic is doing, even without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr. Are you changing your opinion all about the chances of the Denver Nuggets? You're not sold on them this year.
Not this year. I mean, look, if Jamal Murray, I don't know if he's still on the cards to potentially return. I know there was rumors. I don't know if that's fizzled away. Same thing with Michael Porter Jr., but I don't think so. Not this year. I said handful. So when I say handful, 2-3 years, that means this season I didn't expect them to be a factor. Next season I expect them to kind of find themselves a little bit. Now, after that, I think they're talking about a serious championship contender. The Joker can't do it all by himself. You know what I mean? I mean, he can do it all, but he can't win a championship by himself. So, I'm not going away from that pick. I will say the one thing I probably was wrong. With Steph Curry, right? That was one guy who I thought early on that would, he would explode, and he did, but then he fizzled out. So that
give yourself some credit. He was the MVP favorite for a good bit.
He exploded, but then he did fizzle out a bit. So, hey, I was wrong about something.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you credit too as we sort of move into the best predictions that we had. You called it before most people did. I mean, you knew that Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors were going to be back in business. At one point, you considered them a favorite in the Western Conference. And so I give you credit for that Steph Curry pick, man, because when at the beginning of the season, even I tweeted out at one point, I was like, I really think Steph Curry might end up winning this MVP. And then all of a sudden now it feels like it's like a 4 or 5 man race for this NBA MVP. But yeah, what did you sort of see preseason about Curry? Like what sort of intrigued you to make that pick?
Remember this is exactly my words. Cause I'm like, I think they're going to be good because anytime you got Steph Curry on there, like he just makes everyone better. He's perhaps like right now out of everybody in the league, I would have to think about it, but maybe I don't. I think Steph Curry makes everybody better just simply based off where he shoots from, the way he opens up the floor. But I said I wanted to see how much better they would get when Klay Thompson got back. We haven't quite seen it, like how much better, but they're still very good. And I do still kind of see them like right now. Like I said, if I had to guess, I think they are my favorites. Like if they can all get healthy, that's a big if. But if they can get healthy, that is my favorite. So,
yeah. And Gary, talking about MVPs as well, your legitimate prediction was Joel Embiid is going to win the MVP. And man, he's in the race still. From start to finish, he's been in the race all year. Do you think realistically he could pull this out? And what attracted you to pick Joel Embiid before the season even started?
So at the beginning of the year, I was really just looking at the Philadelphia 76ers and going, well, this team really didn't have Ben Simmons last year. They did. Come on. I'm joking. But they didn't have him this year at all. And Joel Embiid was going to take most of, if not all, of the scoring and ball handling opportunities in a sense of creation. They're going to give it to him in the post. He's going to play make from the post when they double team him. I really just thought, well, they're not going to have one of their best passers. They're not going to have one of their second scoring option. What's the reason that Joel Embiid doesn't have a breakout season, average more than he ever averaged, pass better than he ever has? There's not going to be another big man getting rebounds in Ben Simmons. Andre Drummond was there for a little bit, but then they traded him for James Harden. So I was thinking to myself, like, this is the perfect opportunity. If Joel Embiid is the Joel Embiid that we know and the Joel Embiid that we think he's going to be, what better time for him to break into the MVP conversation than right now? Last year, there was a little bit of buzz about him winning the MVP with the 76ers doing as well as they did. But then it started to fall off towards the end with Jokic just kind of crushing it. So you kind of have the same little fight going on right now between him and Jokic. But I picked Joel Embiid MVP at the beginning of the year because I just didn't think there was going to be anybody else for the 76ers to do it. Of course, now they have James Harden, who, although some would say he hasn't exactly lived up to the expectation they thought, he had a couple of bad games. Joel Embiid's had to bail him out a little bit. But at the same time, I still stick with my prediction. Joel Embiid, I really want to win the MVP just to give it to somebody else. I know it's a narrative-based award, and I know that Jokic is killing it, and all the advanced stats say it's Jokic, and all the voters are probably going to vote Jokic because the ESPN poll came out about a week ago. He was the leading vote getter. But, at the beginning of the year, I just picked Embiid because there was nobody else on that Sixers team.
Yeah.
And real quick, before we hit to the next one, I just want to make a little nugget of information about my Warriors and my prediction. One of the major parts is one guy that's been able to step up, and Gary called it early on. He said, look, Jordan Poole, man, I'm on this train. This guy, he's the third, like he's another splash brother. Jordan Poole averaging 18, 3-3, and 3-4. The Warriors have had injury troubles all year. They haven't been able to have their big three, and Poole has stepped up big time. So got to give Gary his praise on that one. That was a really good pick earlier on.
Thank you, sir. I really just was looking Just like the 76ers with Embiid. I was like, all right, Steph and who else? Andrew Wiggins? Yeah, of course. He's the all-star starter, and since then he's averaged like 12 points a game since the all-star break. Not great. Prime Andrew Wiggins numbers where he just kind of like checks out halfway through the season. But Jordan Poole stepping up big time, scoring the ball. I saw this really cool play he did a couple of weeks ago where he kind of hezzy in between his legs to get through to defenders on the pick and roll. They tried to trap him on the left side, and he just kind of, that little move that street ballers do where they jump over their own. It looks like they're almost jumping over their own legs, jumping over the ball. So Jordan Poole's he's a killer, bro. He's
been in my career mode, like getting animations. He's been
got all the animations. He's spending heck amount of VC. Like this guy.
Listen. As much as I want to support Gary's pick of Jordan Poole, what we're not going to do is accept slander of NBA All-Star starter Andrew Wiggins.
Just wait, my friend. He was on we did the little NBA draft.
The draft.
He was our last pick.
I think he won that draft for you, my friend. I think because everybody went with
everybody. Get out of here. Everybody I talked to about that draft was like, man, you got a solid team. And then Andrew Wiggins. And I was like, dang.
Yeah. Listen, I guess for myself, I went through it. I had some hits. I had some misses. I loved the Chicago Bulls pick. On the very first episode we did of this show, I said the Chicago Bulls are going to be my favorite team to watch. And I mean, man, just between DeMar DeRozan, I mean, Gary, you wrote an article, I believe, about DeMar DeRozan in the mid-range shot. You get Zach LaVine as one of the most exciting players. And even when there's been guys missing, their role players have continued to step up in the moment. Lonzo Ball has obviously missed some time as well. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see what exactly is going to happen with the Bulls, because they've fizzled at some points. They were dominating the East at one point in time, and now they've dropped back all the way to the number 5 seed with a record of 45-33. They're tied with the Toronto Raptors right now. So in a playoff matchup, they could be up against the Boston Celtics potentially. They could be up against the Milwaukee Bucks, and that could be really, really bad news for the Bulls. But it's going to be exciting to see what they're all about.
Dude, I got to give you like a ton of props for that one, because we all watched the preseason. We're like, these guys are good. We could actually see them do pretty well. But I was pretty scared. I was excited, but you were like, dude, these guys could make like top 3 in the East.
Yeah,
you were very on board.
I was all in, man. I was all in.
Lonzo Ball takes. We were all going crazy. Clip this, clip that. Dev says Lonzo Ball's going to be an all-star, and sadly injuries played a big part into that. And we didn't see DeMar DeRozan going nuclear like he did this year. Maybe you did. I saw him doing like pretty well, but I thought it was going to be the Lonzo Zach LaVine show. But you showed us. You were right on the money, my man.
Right, and where I was wrong was I thought Zach LaVine was going to play a bigger role, and I was expecting him to be the superstar instead of DeMar DeRozan, but it's really been the DeMar DeRozan show from start to finish. I know he was in the MVP race at one point in time as well. You could have even argued that he could have been the favorite during a certain stretch of the season as well. So, I was wrong about the Zach LaVine part, but as a whole, the Bulls, man, they're an exciting team to watch. And talking about clips, we're going to be, I assume, making a few more clips over this next segment right here, because we haven't even talked about this with each other. We've just sort of been talking about it as, we're going to talk about this in the next show. A playoff matchup that you're eyeing in the first round. So if the season were to end today, these teams go head-to-head with each other. Isaiah, let's start with you. What is the one playoff match you're keeping an eye on right now?
I want to see who the Brooklyn Nets face in the first round, because, I believe they're going to win the play-in game. And I want to see them either get knocked off by the Bucks or beat the Celtics. I'm not sure how it's going to work logistically, like with the standings, but I'm curious to see, because if they were facing, if their schedule worked out, they should be able to make it like second or third round. But this could really change the rest of the playoffs if they go against a team like the Bucks or potentially even the Celtics. Like, it's not a guarantee that they would beat the Celtics. But I really want to see them against the Bucks. Like, you saw that moment the other game when Kevin Durant, he did this step back, like the repeat of what happened, and it fell short. And as great as Kevin Durant is, and I know Kyrie is back, I still got the Bucks. I want to see how this plays out. I want to see Kevin Durant go off. I want to see Giannis ascend even more to even greater heights, because what did I say early on in the season? I will not stray from it. If he gets a consistent 3-point shot, better than Jordan. Remember that one. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the first round.
And so what's interesting about what you said too is because I guess I'll go next because we didn't talk about this beforehand, and I actually have the same exact pick. But Isaiah, you got to keep track of who the Nets would play if they get out of that play-in if the season were to end today, because they're the number 10. They're the last team in. So if they make it out, they're playing whoever that top seed is. And guess who that top seed is right now? That is the Miami Heat with Gary Sunnyberger's team.
Yes.
So you got to get through that.
My friend.
The number 1 Heat. And Gary, I just got to ask you before I make my take. If you have to play the Brooklyn Nets in round 1, are you nervous at all? Because that's Kevin Durant you're talking about. That's Kyrie Irving.
Hell yes, I'm nervous, Devin.
Oh,
Hell yes, I'm nervous. It's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. These people, oh my gosh, you could put them on an island and they'll shoot a 3. These guys are ridiculous. These people can score 80 points together in a game. And the Heat have had some offensive struggles as of late, and they've actually kind of switched up their starting lineup this late in the season, taking out Duncan Robinson and putting in Max Strus there. A little bit better defense, maybe not good of a shooter, but he actually shoots the ball when they want him to. But yeah, I'm scared of the Nets. Of course I'm scared of the Nets. It's Kevin freaking Durant. He is, if he was healthy this year, I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Durant's running away with this MVP. But health is always a concern in these. Kyrie Irving not playing for most of the year and finally being back, he's getting into his groove. Of course, that's all they have. I'm not going to go over here and say that anybody else on this Nets team actually scares me. Blake Griffin is basically a corpse out there on the floor. Patty Mills is averaging 6 points a game post All-Star break. Seth Curry's hurt right now. He's not 100%. He hasn't even played in the last week, and he's going to come back and be a little shaky as he has been. I'm worried about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving because, as we know, it's about who's the best player on the court at any given time. And when those last 3 minutes of the game, and it boils down to just who can make a shot, it's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving versus Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry and Bam and Tyler Hero. Like, I like the team. They're a great team comp, but at the same time, I'm gonna trust. I think it's dumb to say this out loud, but of course I'm gonna trust Kevin Durant before I trust the first scoring option on the Heat, which is Tyler Hero. So yeah I'm scared.
Calling me
terrified.
My take. Yeah, here's my take from it. Is my notes have, if the season ended today, the Brooklyn Nets in the play-in tournament, that first game, it's a storybook. It's a storybook game in the first round of the play-in tournament because Kyrie Irving gets to go to Cleveland and he gets to play against the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road, and that would just be storybook right there for Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets to go into Cleveland right there because they are they're in that play-in tournament, right? As the 7 seed.
Yeah, am I completely wrong about? Dude, this is why I like the play-in tournament, but it's way too confusing. The way that I've interpreted it is that it's the 7 and 8 seed plays. Whoever wins that gets the 7 seed, and then the Hornets and Nets. The winner of the 9-10
they
game.
play, and then they got to play the 7 or 8 loser.
Whoever lost the 7-8 game. So it would be Nets Hornets, and then if the Cavs win that matchup against the Hawks, you're right. That means that team, or they'll be because then they'll be 7-8.
Yeah,
so
in this case, right. So in this case, what I have at least is that I would have Brooklyn to beat Charlotte in the first round. I think that's not even going to be a close game. I think it's going to be an absolute blowout.
Yeah, no doubt.
Even worse than when I believe the Hornets played against the Pacers or something like that, and they got blown out last year in the play-in tournament. And then you get Cleveland and Atlanta. I guess I'm going to take Ice Trae and the Hawks in that game. If I'm getting one game to win it all, I'll take the Hawks over the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then all of a sudden you get that final dagger of the Brooklyn Nets against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the Cavaliers are then going to jump from the 7 seed all the way to eliminated through that play-in tournament. And so what I like about this first round, I mean, the Heat, they're 3-1 against the Nets this season, but when you get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the floor, it's only happened one time this season. And guess what happened? That's where that one loss came from. March 26th was a 110-95 victory for the Brooklyn Nets. Even as the number 1 seed, the Heat have the 5th best odds of making it out of the East. Imagine that the number 1 seed isn't even favored in their own conference.
Dangerously looming, my friend. Dangerously looming. No one believes in the Heat. I said last week I don't believe in the Heat. I might just be a cynic. I might just be down on my guys. But at the same time, I mean, I'd look at this last 4. Of course, they've won the last 2 games, but the previous 4 out of the last 6, they lost. So yeah. I can't really say that a win against the Kings is all too hype for me. Yeah, we won against the Raptors last night, but shout out to Kyle Lowry Day. I don't know if you saw the tribute video for him. Yep. There's a statue of Kyle Lowry in Toronto, and his butt is huge. They made it massive. They really did. They really went with it. But yeah, no, you're 100% right. Of course, jokes aside, I'm worried about the Heat against the Nets for sure. And it boils down to KD and Kyrie. I mean, what else are you going to say? If the Heat don't have a good offensive game, that could be disastrous. Yeah,
Isaiah, you go ahead.
I just want to say real quick. Disrespectful. Fifth. And let me tell you,
that's disrespectful. What other 5 freaking teams are we looking at? The Bulls, 76ers. I guess the Nets probably have a higher chance just because they're the Nets, but it's probably Celtics, Bucks, 76ers, Nets, then Heat.
I'll tell you.
So what it is right now, I'll tell you, is it is Bucks favored at 235. The Brooklyn Nets, as the 10th best team, have the 2nd best odds at plus 320. Then you get the Celtics, then you get the 76ers, and then you get the Heat. And then following that is the Bulls, the Raptors, the Cavs, the Hawks, and the Hornets.
I just don't get the Heat over 76ers over the Heat. I mean, yes, Joel Embiid, yes, James Harden, but just the last couple of games, James Harden's kind of not been playing that great. It's a little shaky in my opinion. To pick against a team who's been just super consistent all year. Yeah, they've had a little bit of a bad stretch as of late. Yeah. And it's all about runs. The NBA is all about getting hot at the right time. And if the Heat aren't, then I mean, who knows? But yeah. You're right. I'm a little worried that.
And the last point I'll make about this specific matchup, and then we'll move into your matchup, Gary, is a point that you already made for me, was that I don't think that the Heat have a single player that can just take over the game completely, whereas the Brooklyn Nets have 2 of them when it comes to Kyrie and KD. I mean, when you're talking about the Miami Heat, for example, Jimmy Butler's their leading scorer, but Jimmy Butler only averages 21.3 points per game. You're not going to win a 7-game series against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving by putting up 21 points a night. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking when it comes to if the Heat get a bubble finals performance out of Jimmy Butler, of course we're going to go pretty far, but that's 1 in a million shot. I'm not saying that Jimmy Butler's bad. Of course, he's been really good this year and, should be on an all NBA team just in regards of talent. The Heat are number 1 in the East. I think it'd be pretty disrespectful to keep him off of one of those teams, but yeah, I'm a little worried that if we don't get a Jimmy Butler stellar performance that we might be out in the 1st or 2nd round. I like to believe as a Heat fan, we're going to take the 1st round just as the 1 seed. It would be really weird to see a 1 seed. I think the last 1 seed that got knocked out in the 1st round was that 2007 Mavericks against the Golden State Warriors with the We Believe, that Matt Barnes, Baron Davis team. But yeah, I'd be surprised if the Heat come out in the don't get out of the 1st round. But yeah, I'm scared. I'm terrified.
Yeah. I'm trying to look. Go ahead.
If they could get past the Nets in the 1st round,
yeah,
then at that point they could beat anybody as far as I'm concerned. They couldn't beat I do think it's a bad matchup against the Nets just because of the same reasons you guys mentioned. Now I think it's weird because I think the Bucks could eat. I really think they're going to beat the Nets. I just think that's what's going to happen. But I see the Heat as a major threat to Giannis. Because of the type of defense they played on him the last time, I will never forget. You saw all 5 guys lined up, and Giannis is just like, okay, like how do I get through this? So, and they have depth as well. So Miami Heat, look, third best odds if I had to play. Okay, third best odds. That's
and to sort of wrap up this one, what I'll tell you is the last number 8 team to beat, or the last. Now we have the play-in tournament, so technically the Nets would be number 10. But the last time an 8 seed, for example, knocked off a 1 seed was in that 2012 season. The Philadelphia 76ers go up against the Chicago Bulls. Derrick Rose in Game 1 tears his ACL in his knee, and the Philadelphia 76ers win in 6 games, led by, at the time, Drew Holiday, Andre Iguodala, and Lou Williams led that victory.
What a wild collection of players I forgot played together.
Yeah.
What a menacing defensive team. Drew Holiday and Andre Iguodala. I wouldn't want to play them. Yeah, 8 seed running into Andre Iguodala in his prime and Drew Holiday. That's just disgusting.
And so, Gary, you have an interesting matchup, and I actually thought this might be the best matchup for television when you're talking about over in the Western Conference. So sort of talk us through your method right here.
All right. So I'm looking at this in the regards of like, so basically my prediction for this being they're the 4 and 5 seed. I do believe in the West, this would be the matchup to watch. If I had to pick any of these matchups to watch, I'm watching this one on TV. This one better be on ESPN. I'm looking at Mavs. I'm looking at the Nuggets. Dallas Mavericks versus Nuggets. We got Jokic versus Doncic. We got the Chich. We got we got the Chich brothers. We're basically, the way that I'm looking at this is you got 2 players who are so stellar offensively, and they do everything for their teams. It's going to be a back and forth battle between the 2 of them. And the thing that I think makes this the most interesting is just how good Dallas has been on defense this year. With Jason Kidd as their head coach, who I was not a huge fan of at the beginning of the year when they signed him to a contract as their head coach. They are the 7th best defense in the league at the moment. And that is a defense that basically, other than Luka Doncic, the team that other than Luka Doncic doesn't really have a star player. It's just a bunch of solid guys. Jalen Brunson's a good player. I'm not doubting the ability of him to go off on any given night, but this is Luka Doncic's team. And the other side of the ball, you got Jokic with, the injury reserves of injury reserves when you don't have your 2 best other players. And the fact that they both are in the 4 and 5 seeds in the West not only is really fun to watch as a basketball fan, but it's really interesting to think of from a player perspective with Doncic and Jokic, just 2 dudes who are doing everything. And I'm so excited to see this 2 incredible ball handlers, incredible passers going off 1v1, at least offensively, not like they're not going to guard each other. That'd be kind of wild to see Jokic trying to guard Luka on the perimeter, vice versa in the post. But offensively, these 2 dudes are the oil that gets their engine running. And I'm just super excited to watch this matchup just because of how, it's going to be just a passing display. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised if every single night there's a highlight on ESPN of one of these 2 dudes making some crazy behind the back or overhead passes. This is just like basketball entertainment at its finest. We get to see like 2 MVP candidates. And, I say that lightly in a way, but Luka's kind of climbing up that ladder, at least to be respected in that regard.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because the Mavericks, Jalen Brunson is averaging a little more than 16 points a game, and the second highest scorer for the Dallas Mavericks is only scoring 0.2 points more than Jalen Brunson, and that's Spencer Dinwiddie, who's only played 20 games this whole entire season.
Wild.
Absolutely
His resurgence after getting traded from the Wizards and the Porzingis trade at the beginning of the year, during the trade deadline, which when we were on call during our trade deadline podcast, Dev, we talked about it.
Yeah.
We liked the trade, but I was also a little skeptical. I was like, cool, another ball handler to get the ball out of Luka's hands just to give him a little bit of rest. But Spencer Dinwiddie hasn't been great, and they're losing a big guy that they need in the post. Of course, he's not the best defensive player in the league in Porzingis, but they haven't really had any trouble with that. They don't have a dude on the court that you can just kind of like run at. Luka Doncic is a lot better of a defender than people give him credit for, and he's not great, but he's also not bad. He's big, he's got long arms, and he knows how to play positional defense. You can watch him in Jason Kidd's scheme. They do a pretty good job of hiding him, but when he needs to guard someone like LeBron James or someone like Kevin Durant, it's not like he's just like trotting up and down the court. He's actually trying on defense, and that's a credit to the coaching staff for getting Doncic to believe. But back to what your point was with Spencer Dinwiddie. Sorry, I went off on a weird tangent.
Oh, you're
good.
Spencer Dinwiddie is just incredible. And the fact that he's able to he had a game winner a couple of weeks ago. The fact that he's able to fit seamlessly in this Dallas offense, who desperately needed a second ball handler or a third ball handler other than Brunson and Doncic. It's just really cool to watch a guy come back after a pretty down year with Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we sort of get into this, like we said, we talked about our predictions early season, and now we're sort of in this home stretch of the season. We're going to see who makes the playoffs, who doesn't make the playoffs. We're going to go through, as we sort of wrap up this show here, we're going to be talking about now who are we giving these awards to. So I know when we detailed it out, we also have, we get the MVP. I took over. I was also deemed responsible for Coach of the Year. Isaiah's going to be going over the Rookie of the Year as well as the Sixth Man of the Year. And then Gary is going to wrap it up with the Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm really interested in finding out who he thinks is the most improved player this season. I'm going to start off because it's just right there in front of us. And I know Gary is not going to like this answer. The MVP award. He said it earlier. He wants Joel Embiid, but he thinks everyone's going to give it to Jokic. I got to give it to Jokic. To Jokic. He hasn't had Jamal Murray. He hasn't had Michael Porter Jr. The Nuggets are comfortably going to make a spot in the Western Conference playoffs. Whether they beat the Mavericks, we don't know. Who else they face, we don't know. But based on advanced stats, like Gary talked about, he leads pretty much everything, and it's not even close. He's a minus 320 favorite, but he leads the league when it comes to player efficiency, win shares, real plus minus, and value over replacement player, all very important stats. And like I said, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. only played 9 games this season for the Nuggets. He's been injury-ridden ever since coming into the league, and even before he was in the league, we all knew of his injury history then. And then we're talking about his numbers offensively, but we also don't take into effect his numbers defensively. This is a guy who was once deemed a defensive liability, just too slow, too lunky pretty much, and he is one of 4 players in the NBA today this season that has recorded over 90 steals and over 50 blocks. I believe the other ones are Tybal, Robert Covington, and then there's one more somewhere out there as well. But, I mean, with Jokic on the court, the team has been 45-27 this season, and it's only a small sample size in which he hasn't been on the court, but when he hasn't, he's missed 7 games this season, and when he's not there, he's 2-5. I'm always a fan of when guys are playing from start to finish, missing the least amount of games as possible. It's why I give LeBron James a hard time every single year, because the dude just misses games. And so, yeah, I'm gonna give that one to Jokic. And then for my Coach of the Year, once again, not a huge surprise. I'm going Monty Williams and the Phoenix Suns. I mean, who else can you give that to? Last year, he was absolutely robbed because a man by the name of Tom Thibodeau stole the Coach of the Year award from him. He should have been the one to get it last year and this year. The Suns obviously have the best record in the NBA, and it's not even close. And they've actually never lost a game this season when they lead after 3 quarters of play. They've recorded over 45 wins and 0 losses during that span. They're the number 2 team both offensively and defensively this season, have the number 1 net rating. They're also on track for one of the best finishes in regular season history right now with a few games left to play. But oddly enough, the one reason I might be worried, he's like minus 2,000 favorites, by the way. So don't even go bet on this guy because he's just an overwhelming favorite. The one part that scares me, though, is I read up and saw this. 17 of the 59, so this started way back. So there's been 59 Coach of the Year awards. Only 17 of them have gone to the coach that has produced the best overall record during that season, which is a really weird stat. 17 of 59 seems like it should be higher. The last one to do so was Steve Kerr, obviously, during that historic 2015 to 2016 season. So I've got Jokic for MVP, and then I've got Monty Williams for Coach of the Year. I felt like that was pretty straightforward. As we move over to Isaiah, who's going to be talking about our Rookie of the Year and our Sixth Man of the Year.
This is where we test your friendship with me, Isaiah. Here, go for it.
So that's why I'm going to start with the rookie of the year. Rookie of the year. We're gonna start there. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of struggled with this one. I don't think I should have, but I just wanted to give a more fancier pick. But in the end, reality sets in, and I'm gonna just like Dev, go with Joe. Okay, you want to have a fun pick. I'm going with Scotty Barnes. Okay.
Woo!
Listen.
Talking about reality. Oh,
I
man.
love this pick.
Did you
Scotty
want Cade
Barnes.
Cunningham?
Yes, sir.
I mean, look, Evan Mobley was right there. Okay, but did you want Cade Cunningham, the guy that's not even listen, I'm going with guys that are in the playoffs, that are a real piece of a successful playoff team in Scotty Barnes. Where were Toronto last year in the standings prior to him? Were they outside of the?
Oh, they got the
you don't have to answer. They weren't even in the
for
playoffs.
a reason.
Exactly. So he's come in on a pretty crowded roster too. I know Pascal's been in and out. You got a lot of pieces on there, and he's been able to do his thing calmly. He's averaging 15, 8, and 4 on the season. But I'm looking at the success of the team, and he's right there in the middle of it. If not, I wouldn't call him the main piece, but he's right there. I'm going with the success. Now, Mobley was right there. Okay, Mobley was right there, but like you said, the health issue. And I'm going with the guy that they just done better. I take into account the team's playing ability. That's just what I do. Okay, now this is where the friendship gets taken into. I think it's tested. We're gonna move over to the end of the year. Let me change the music a minute. I'm gonna go to daydream.
Oh, goodness.
I'm gonna go to daydreaming.
Oh no, I'm ready. I'm ready to leave this podcast.
Listen.
Oh no.
This would have been Jordan Poole probably if Steph Curry and them were. But I'm gonna go with somebody that's probably gonna disappoint Mr. Gary right here. I'm going with Tyler.
Okay. Oh man, you gave me a heart attack just there. I was about to say, who else?
Yes,
my dog?
You really had us for a second.
I was like, if this man says Kevin Love, I'm gonna throw my computer across the room.
Look, there's really no this one was. I couldn't really go with anybody else. Let's be honest. He's averaging 21, 5, and 4. The only reason why I probably wouldn't have wanted to give it to him is because he shouldn't even be on the bench. The guy should be starting somewhere. Tyler Hero is a legitimate baller. That's why you were talking about a guy maybe not being able to take the last shot on the Heat. And I get that little face. I'm like, oh no, I feel like he's got that in him, but we haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say that. But there's no doubt, 6th man of the year for sure. I will tell you this, and he's so valuable. You take off Tyler, this is how I feel. I just said they were a top 3 favorite. You take him off of that roster, and I probably got him 6th favorite. You need him. You need him in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's the youth. He's the heart. He's that backbone. He gives you a little bit of edge. And so you're not daydreaming, Gary. It is gonna be.
Thank you.
It's gonna be Tyler Hero, and that one is you could book it. You could book it. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And I think he's the betting favorite for the last 6 months too.
Yeah.
I know that's a ridiculous amount of time to say that, but
Yeah.
yes, he's the betting favorite for a long time.
He beat out Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose would have been right there, if he wasn't. But it is what it is. We move on.
Yeah, and if you want to go bet on Tyler Hero right now, at this point of the season, he is a whopping minus 20,000 favorite. The next best odds that you're going to find are Kelly Oubre for plus 6,500 and Kevin Love for the same exact odds. And then everyone else, Montrezl Harrell, Jordan Clarkson, Buddy Hield. So, yeah, I felt like I would have been shocked if you didn't take Tyler Hero right there.
I just want to take you guys on an emotional roller coaster. It's been that kind of season, but
trust me, I was on your Facebook profile. I was hitting remove friend. I was ready to do it. I was all about it.
Yeah, and then Gary, you're going to be the one wrapping it up for us, and I'm interested in these two. So, Defensive Player of the Year and Most Improved Player. Go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Okay, my friends. So, unfortunately, I have to take away one of the people I would love to give this award to. I would love to be able to say that Bam Adebayo is my Defensive Player of the Year, and that really is because he's leading a great defense in the Miami Heat. They're way better defensively when he's on the court, but unfortunately for me and for all of the Bam stans out there, he does not have the games played that people would like to see when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year. He is pretty highly favored in a way, not 100% favorite. he's not going to win the award based on games played, and that's fine. I have accepted that as a fan. But the guy that I'm going to look at for Defensive Player of the Year is somebody who I think is just the best. I mean, like, I don't think there's any way around it. He's the best defensive player in the league, and we just try to give this award to a bunch of random other people when it really deserves to be Giannis Antetokounmpo winning Defensive Player of the Year again. He is absurd defensively. He averages a steal and a block and a half a game this year. The Bucks, although they haven't been the best defense in the league as they have in previous years, it's still Giannis Antetokounmpo as a dominant force. And I love the metal music we got going on here because it really does describe how gritty he is as a defender. He might play that free safety position. He's not always guarding the greatest player on the other side of the court, but you can watch any game in crunch time. Giannis is destroying dudes on that end of the court. He is by far my favorite for this award, just based on his reputation, his ability as a lanky defender to basically guard all 5 positions. And even if he does get beat by a point guard, he's blocking that thing and sending it off the backboard. I'm going with Giannis Antetokounmpo for my Defensive Player of the Year. And we got to remember, guys, that rebounding matters when it comes to DPOYs. He's got 11 rebounds, 11 and a half rebounds a game, a steal, a block and a half. Yeah, it's just, I can't say anything else, but this guy's a menace defensively. Just a couple of games ago against the Grizzlies, he had 4 blocks. Yeah, he has games with 3 blocks. He's got games with 2 steals. I mean, he's just versatile. He can get it done on both ends of the courts, but of course, Defensive Player of the Year, he deserves this award. And I do think that we have to give him more consideration, of course, for MVP, just based on we don't give enough credit for defense when it comes to that award. But moving on to my most improved player.
Before you move on, I think Isaiah wants to chirp in over there.
Go for it.
I'm trying to point to Devin here. I'm trying to figure out. I see a face. You have a problem with what he said, Dev?
I have a huge problem with what he's saying. We're talking about. He didn't even mention Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is the favorite for this award. Marcus Smart is probably going to come away with it. And I'm telling you, I'm going to make you some quick cash. If you really believe Giannis is going to win, a $10 bet could win you $130, Gary. $130 for a $10 bet for Giannis. He's got plus 1,300 odds. Guys ahead of him are Marcus Smart. Bam is the second most favored player for this award. Then you get Mikal Bridges over in Phoenix, and then you get Rudy Gobert plus 450. And then it's a huge dip. And then Giannis. But I hear you. Giannis is probably a better case for MVP than Defensive Player of the Year. But I get it. But man, okay, I'm going Marcus Smart. But it's your segment. It's not mine.
I would like to say, okay, Marcus Smart, definitely deserving of a seat at the table. This is a big table, but we're definitely deserving of course, he is, if not my number 2 guy. Like, he could win this thing. Like, the Celtics have been dominant on that end of the court, and that starts with Marcus Smart. But from my perspective and from my experience as a basketball viewer and watcher, there is no more impactful player defensively than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Marcus Smart is a great defender. He can guard as a 6'3" guard. He can defend all 5 positions decently well. Of course, he's not like gonna rim protect. He's not like a rim protector at the rim, but he's gonna fight for those possessions in the post when he's guarding those guys. But personally, I just think that this is a bigger man-centric award to win. And of course, I think Giannis has the block stats. He has the ability to play on the defensive rim protection-wise and on the perimeter, whereas Marcus Smart, although he is the favorite and possibly going to win this award, I personally, and if I were to say like who would I think was going to win, I'd probably say Marcus Smart. But personally, I'm going with Giannis. And that's just based on how I feel as a fan of the sport. I think Giannis just makes a better impact overall than Marcus Smart would.
And do you guys know? So I'll let Gary get into his minute most improved player in just 1 minute. We obviously have, we're limited on time here. We want to get through this as efficiently as possible. Do you, either one of you, know the last guard to win Defensive Player of the Year?
Ooh, can I take a stab?
Take a stab.
Gary Payton.
Gary Payton is the last point guard to win this.
Okay.
That was 1982 to 83. There's a shooting guard that won it 6 years later in 1988.
Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan in 1988 is the last guard to win. Only one point guard has ever won, and I don't know if another point guard is going to win anytime soon. Marcus Smart obviously would categorize as a shooting guard, in my opinion. He would be the first one since that 1988. But Gary, you're right on the money. It's a big man award. That's why Giannis could very well be in the mix for it. Rudy Gobert also in the mix for it. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way right there.
Yeah, and I think it's easy. Honestly, I think it's easily Bam's award if he's not hurt most of the season.
Yeah.
He went out with a little bit of a hand injury, was out for about 8 weeks, 2 months. I mean, that's just what else are you going to do about that? But okay, most improved player, and I think everybody saw this coming from a mile away. I don't think there's any discussion that this guy deserves this award, and that would be Mr. Ja Morant.
Okay.
Ja Morant, he went from 19 points a game to freaking 27. He leads the league as a 6'3" point guard at points at the rim. Think about that. It's like Derrick Rose-esque, and that's like MVP Derrick Rose. This guy is, and not only is he shooting way above expected at the rim, just in regards of like pure points per game, he's also shooting better than he ever has in his career. His field goal percentage jumped like crazy. I'm going to bring it up the stats right here just to say it out loud. He went from 44% from the field to 49, a little bit of a jump in shooting, a 30% three-point shooter to a 34%. He's not been playing as of late due to an injury, and still the Grizzlies are finding a way to kill it. But he's also averaging more steals than he has ever in his career. But I think really the whole point of this is in basically the same amount of minutes per game, Ja Morant almost upped his points per game by 10, and he's in the MVP conversation at some point in this season. I don't think that was very justified, just based on like how other players are playing and the consistency that you need to win MVP. But Ja Morant is easily my most improved player, and I was in a rush today outside of the house leaving for work. But I'm wearing my Dennis Rodman shirt. I would have worn my Ja Morant shirt. I've been dropping it on the podcast every here and there. I've been loving Ja Morant this year, and I had a guy come into I work at a bar, just for everybody to know. And I had a guy come into the bar the other day after we recorded a podcast. I was wearing my Ja Morant shirt, and he's like, "Who's that?" I called him a casual to his face. Get on the Ja Morant hype train. Ja Morant, most improved player, and look out, because this Grizzlies team is a menace. And if they can get hot at the right time, I wouldn't be surprised that we have the Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year because stuff broke well for them. We've had teams like the Portland Trailblazers, who no one really believed in during those years, but Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum were able to get into the Western Conference Finals. It's not crazy to think that the Grizzlies and the Suns might be playing in the West this year for that Western Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals belt. I just think that Ja Morant is the easy favorite for this award. Of course, you have some other guys that you could give some credit to. Ja Morant or Jordan Poole, somebody that I was high on at the beginning of the season, was in this category as well. Do we have the betting favorites for most improved
player? So I have the betting favorites in front of me. So you got minus 550 for Ja Morant. He's the clear favorite, because then after that you get plus 600 for Darius Garland, who's had a great season.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one.
And then it's a huge jump after that at plus 1600. You're talking about guys like DeJounte Murray, Miles Bridges, Desmond Bane, Jordan Poole, Tyrese Maxey, and Tyler Hero rounded out.
Yeah, I would love to say one thing before we start wrapping up here. Darius Garland, we haven't given much love to him during the season, and literally I created a top 10 point guards list at the beginning of this calendar year in January, and we didn't even put Darius Garland in our freaking rundown. We didn't even talk about him the entire year. He'd be like number 4, 5, 6 for me right now. He's absolutely absurd this year. Of course, he's having to carry a lot of the load because of Cleveland's injuries, but at the same time, I'm sorry, Darius Garland's fans. I'm sorry, Darius Garland personally. I know you watch the show because every NBA player is tuning in to Deep Takes from 3, presented by theathleteshub.org. But sorry, Darius, I apologize. Maybe invite me out to Cleveland. Send me that plane ticket. I'll come watch a Cleveland Cavs game. I'll go to the Quicken Loans Arena. I'll sit there. I'll watch the whatever I watch you do 25 and 11 or whatever you do on a daily basis. You're just
the new
incredible.
Lob City. The new Lob City.
New Lob
Yeah.
City. Darius Garland. I love this guy. He's a great facilitator. He's going to be a star in this league coming forward. But at this point in time, this is Ja Morant's award.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. I think those are really solid picks all the way around. And as we wrap up the 15th episode of the show, make sure you're checking us out every single week at 4, 5, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our times sort of switch all over the place, but nowadays we're usually on at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Also, make sure you're checking out the show right before us over at Free Baseball. Isaiah is also there as well. So he's been on the podcast realm for the last few hours now. He's been in a great addition to both of those teams. Gary obviously does what he does at the highest level possible. And so if you want to check out our content, go on over to theathleteshub.org. We got a lot of great stuff brewing for you. We mentioned at the top of the show, opening day is coming up, WWE, WrestleMania, all this crazy stuff that we want to get covered for you. So make sure to check us out, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Go Heat.
Should I leave the stream again? Let you guys.